Today, members of the National Guard began arriving in the nation's capital one day after President Trump announced the federal takeover of the city's police department. 800 National Guard troops are expected to descend on the nation's capital after the president said it was necessary to combat crime. But the move comes even as law enforcement data shows that violent crime in the city has been on the decline since 2023. And CBS News Justice reporter Jake Rosen joins me now with more on all this. Jake, thanks so much for being with us. Can you talk to us about what role these National Guard troops will serve in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, and think about what that law enforcement presence and National Guard presence looked like in Los Angeles a couple of months ago when the Trump administration deployed them there. They were meant specifically at first to just protect federal buildings and to provide assistance to other federal law enforcement that was going throughout Los Angeles to kind of quell those protests. Sources tell CBS News and our Pentagon team here that that's the likeliest course of action, that they're not going to be walking around the city armed, and though they are deployed under Title 32, which would allow them to technically complete some law enforcement activity, they're not going to be making arrests, at least as of this time. They'll simply be protecting federal buildings and monuments around the city, which, as we know in D.C., for what President Trump has made clear, he wants people who are not from Washington, D.C., who are here visiting, walking throughout the Capitol and the district to feel safe. That certainly becomes easier as you can deploy them to parks throughout the city, in addition to the National Mall and federal properties. Although I will say that's not necessarily where all the crime here happens. And these troops, while they are arriving in D.C., are not expected to be deployed necessarily in the next couple of days. It'll likely take potentially 2 or 3 days, and if not, a couple of weeks to retrain, reorganize these troops and then send them around the city. So not an immediate fix to what President Trump talked about yesterday, but certainly help is on the way for the White House in their quest to kind of at least signal to the public here that D.C. is safe.
Well, on that front, Jake, President Trump, though, continues to say that crime in D.C. is out of control, using very descriptive terms to lay out the scene there. Where exactly do things stand right now?
Well, violent crime is down year over year, at least as of a couple of days ago. About 28% for robberies. For violent crime, it's down 26% from last year. While, yes, that is a low of about lowest level in 30 years, that comes off of a high in 2023 that was historic, not just in Washington, in D.C. specifically, but also in major cities throughout the country. The Trump administration has been quick to rebuff fact checks and D.C. officials who have pointed out that violent crime is at its lowest point by saying that if you just go back to pre-pandemic levels, violent crime and robberies, carjackings are not nearly where they were at that point. They're still well above kind of that average, although we've seen, at least for this year, crime and the crime wave seem to be regressing a little bit.
As for what's behind all this, the U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C., Janine Pirro, was asked about whether the district was hit hard because of cuts to the Justice Department's grants on gun violence prevention. Can you talk about how she responded to that?
Yeah, she pushed back today, saying it's not about what provides people the motive to do these kinds of crimes, but it's about taking care of the victims. Think about the Capitol Jewish Museum shooting, in which 2 people were killed, a shooting on July 4th, and dozens of people younger than 21 and 18 who have died in recent months in D.C., and protecting them and their families by getting, holding these perpetrators accountable and making clear to people that crime in this city is being handled at a higher level.
All right, Jake Rosen, thank you very much. We appreciate it.